That is not where I keep. That doesn't have pockets. All right. We are streaming. Are we streaming? Oh, we're
It's
streaming.
Monday, February 12th. Can you believe it? We're almost halfway through February.
Oh, wow.
Ah, don't remind me.
It reminds me I have to do taxes.
Oh, I need to get that stuff.
That is not something I'm looking forward to.
Oh, taxes.
Oh, taxes.
I'm going to file my city taxes this week. Those are just annoying. They're just paperwork. LA city taxes are pretty easy, but you just have to do them.
I don't do LA city taxes.
You are not an LLC though.
True.
I have to file three.
Sole proprietor. That's what I am.
I have to file 3 city taxes. One for Sword and Laser, one for Subbrilliant, and one for myself because I claim deductions as a business on my personal returns, and LA requires you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting
Hi, Veronica.
into really need someone to do my taxes territory.
Did you say thanks? Mm-hmm. Oh, for the Sword and Laser part?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Hello, Veronica.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm good. Busy.
How was your call? Was your
It was
call good?
It
Good.
was.
Tell us about it.
No.
Yes, tell us all the secret details.
Days are busy. Yeah, it was good. It was fine.
Good, good. Well, I'm glad you have time to do the show, though.
Me too.
We're happy to have you.
I wonder if I deduct my full amount of my property tax.
Roger's happy too. He's just
I'm sure.
Oh, I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. What happened?
Thinking about taxes.
I had a lot of sugar over the weekend.
So I know the show's about to start, but how are we all feeling about the Winter Olympics?
Oh, I'm
I
loving
forgot they started.
I haven't seen any.
We've been watching it nonstop.
I have too, but it's so disjointed because there's so many ways to watch everything live now.
I want to talk about this. We don't have enough time before the show, but don't forget, bring it back up after the show because I have a lot to say. And it involves a Radeon 580, a Razer enclosure, and bad UI.
Nice.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Stick around,
Post
folks.
show gonna be lit.
Post show is going to be the Olympic torch lit.
I've seen opening ceremonies I liked better.
Yeah.
Just gonna say that.
All right. Before I get sucked into talking about that with you, let's start the show, shall we?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. 3, 2.
The Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by people like me, not outside organizations. To learn more, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, February 12th, 2018 from DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from Studio Bay City, I'm Veronica.
Ooh,
Belmont.
Bay City. Like Altered Carbon Bay City.
Yes. Yeah.
I like it.
Oh,
I
I was thinking Bay City Rollers.
Also,
there's
Also
a deli
good.
near me called Bay City's Italian Deli.
Mm.
So, full
Interesting.
circle.
Of course, that's our producer, Roger Chang,
Yes.
in inland cities.
I'm on the coast of the Inland Empire. How's that?
All right. That's cool.
Well, a lot of times we feel like people get too many Apple or Google rumors. But today, we're throwing that to the wind because we've got some pretty interesting and somewhat reliable, because they're from Mark Gurman, Apple and Google rumors. But let's start with a few other tech things you should know.
Another Apple story, but different one. According to Motherboard, an Apple intern was behind the leaked iOS 9 source code that appeared on GitHub last week. The code was originally given to a close group of 5 friends years ago, but eventually leaked outside the group. Which
Don't tell anyone.
Don't give anybody this, especially don't put it on GitHub. Google has made its cloud tensor processing units available in public beta for companies who want to do AI processing. Google Cloud customers will pay $6.50 per TPU per hour during the beta.
AMD has released the Ryzen Raven Ridge desktop APUs. Those are accelerated processing units. They have graphics and CPU capability. So they have Radeon Vega graphics inside. The Ryzen 3 2200G cost you $99. Yeah. Tired of paying Bitcoin mining inflated prices? Maybe check these APUs out. 4 cores, 4 threads for the CPU, and 8 Radeon Vega compute units for the GPU. The Ryzen 2400G costs $169, still not very expensive. 4 cores and 8 threads for the CPU and 11 Radeon Vega CUs. The cards have less L3 cache and fewer PCIe lanes than Ryzen CPUs, but tests from a lot of different people say that the performance drop is minimal, and it's a decent option for budget gamers. So, good news.
Good to know.
Let's talk a little more about the kids, though, and what are they doing with Facebook, Veronica?
Oh, the Facebooks. eMarketer estimates Facebook usage among 12 to 17-year-olds in the U.S. dropped 9.9% in 2017, or about 1.4 million users to a total of 12.1 million. eMarketer found Facebook lost about 2.8 million U.S. users younger than 25 last year. The research firm estimates that decline will continue in 2018, though overall growth will rise for Facebook thanks to growth in older demographics. And I read this earlier, and it sounds like a lot of this is happening from high usage in both Snapchat and Instagram, which is still technically a Facebook property, but is, I guess, not being counted in these numbers.
Kind of funny, too, that the age range of what eMarketer is looking at in the decline includes 12-year-olds, since you have to be 13 years old to have a Facebook account, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's probably enough data as to,
it's a standard demographic, right? So 12 to 17 doesn't mean they're like trying to encourage 12-year-olds. They're saying we always look at 12 to 17. We know Facebook, you're not supposed to use it until you're 13, but at least when you're comparing Facebook numbers to Facebook numbers, they will be consistent across those.
Well, this is also interesting too, because it really feels like a lot of what has to do with the surge in Instagram and Snapchat usage is the impermanence of it. And Facebook is really more tied around kind of recognizing special events or posting things related to your family and friends that you kind of want to stick around. So, a lot of teens had been whitewalling their Facebook, posting things and deleting them. But I guess eventually that just got boring, and now they just rather go to something that doesn't stick around for very long.
I don't know that it's necessarily bad for Facebook to become the grown-up place, right? Yeah. You start on whatever the hot new app is when you're a teen, and then you move into Snapchat, and then you go maybe you go to Instagram and then into Facebook and maybe Twitter if you get political or something. But what I think is hard to tell is how much Snapchat really is a part of that, and what else are teens doing, because Snapchat, while its user growth is recovering, it's still not growing as gangbusters as it used to. So I feel like there are other apps picking up the slack out there.
There was a TechCrunch article about Instagram testing the ability for, Veronica takes a screenshot of one of my Instagram stories for me to be notified, which is the Snapchat feature.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, is that really happening all that? Like, is that really a feature?
I think it is.
Instagram creepers.
Yeah. I mean, clearly it is.
This is fascinating to me because I was really into Snapchat for a while. I have full on moved over to Instagram stories, and it's, the features are okay. There's some things I like about Instagram better than Snapchat, but not a ton. It's really just that's where my people are. And maybe because I'm a little bit older, and I guess Instagram stories for me just is more fun because I actually know that my friends are there.
And don't forget, Snapchat had a very unpopular redesign rollout this weekend.
Yes.
So whether it will be just the normal, like, things changed, I hate it, and then everybody gets used to it, or maybe this time it pushes people off the platform, is hard to say.
The backlash has been, yes, it is. And I finally got the new design as well, and I was kind of like, I'm, pressing the wrong things, or, swiping left when I'm used to swiping right. But it still works the same way. It seems a little dramatic.
Did you hear that it's like the third most retweeted tweet of all time is the one that was like a joke, like retweet this if you want Snapchat to go back to its old its old UI. The third most retweeted tweet.
People don't like change.
No, they don't.
Change is hard.
Uber announced it will require its most frequent drivers to take 6-hour breaks after driving for 12 hours straight. The company is rolling out an update to the driver version of the app over the next 2 weeks so that it logs off after counting 12 hours of driving And then drivers won't be able to log back in until the app registers 6 hours offline. The app will send a warning at the 10-hour mark saying, got 2 hours left, and then again at the 11th hour. Drowsy driving is the cause of up to 6,000 fatal crashes annually, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. You know, it's interesting. Mike Isaac, who's writes for the New York Times, but is also writing a book about Uber, said he was chatting up an Uber driver about this change, you know, on a recent trip. And they said, well, you know, a lot of us also ride for or drive for Lyft.
Yeah, we'll just switch over.
Yeah, Uber and Lyft don't have a problem with that, right? You can go back and forth. So in a way, you know, if you want to just keep going after 12 hours and you don't think you're tired, you could get around this easily and still make money. However, that's obviously really dangerous.
Yeah, that was the first thing that went into my mind when I saw this story. I was like, oh, drivers will immediately find a way around this. They have found so many interesting hacks, basically, for the system to let them get around some of these limitations and things that Uber or Lyft put in place. So there's no doubt in my mind that if someone is dedicated to driving, you know, a 15-hour day, that they're going to find a way to do it for sure. And probably with not much difficulty either.
That's really the interesting thing about where ride-hailing sits. There's been a backlash against ride-hailing saying you're trying to pretend that your employees are independent contractors, but they're really employees. However, this is an example where they are definitely behaving like independent contractors if they try to get around this. The idea of you shouldn't be allowed to work more than 12 hours straight is kind of taken from Uber is your employer, and they should be doing something to make sure that you don't work too much, and they should pay you overtime and all of that's the theory, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the driver that says, well, I'll turn off Uber for 6 hours and go to Lyft is exercising as an independent contractor. If you're a normal full-time employee, you wouldn't be able to like just say, I'm going to go work for the competitor across the street, you know, for the next 8 hours. I mean, you could moonlight, but even some companies don't want you to moonlight at a non-competitive job. So it's really interesting. And I was of two minds. When I first read this, I'm like, look, if you want to work long hours, you should be allowed to do it. But on the other hand, I think there is a thing. I think there is a point where companies do have a responsibility to say, we can't stop you from overworking, but we can at least stop you from overworking for us because that's dangerous.
Well, and just a few PR nightmares. You know, if we could point to, well, obviously these drivers feel underpaid and so they're working too much and they're fatigued and we're getting into accidents. If you have enough of that kind of thing going on, Uber and Lyft and, you know, other companies that are in the space, you know, might be forced to come together, whether or not they really want to, just because you can't have a ride-hailing service where your drivers are, you know, the incapacitated. Yeah. So they could be forced to, you know, make some sort of an allegiance, whether or not
if the problem gets that bad. The other thing is how many drivers actually do want to work more than 12 hours. I imagine it's a small number. So maybe this is enough to dissuade even that small number.
I've had so many bad Uber drivers. Sometimes I'm like, it's a wonder I've not been in an accident.
I have wondered often the same thing as well, but I guess it's a choice we opt ourselves into.
Apple, LG, and Valve are making a $10 million investment in Emagin, spelled E-M-A-G-I-N. Despite the name, it's actually a really interesting company. It makes OLED microdisplays, or OLED microdisplays, for use usually by the medical industry, industrial uses, military devices. But the US-based company said it is, in fact, making for tier 1 clients. It didn't connect it directly to the investment, but come on, we can put the dots together. It is making micro displays for head-mounted devices. Emagin makes a 2K display with a resolution of 2048 by 2048 pixels with a 70% fill factor. So everyone's guess is that Apple, LG, and Valve are going to make more lightweight headsets with these high-quality OLED micro displays inside. So these are that kind of mid-range between an HTC Vive and, you know, what's the Galaxy one? Now it's escaping me, or the Google one.
Well, yeah, it says here that LG and Valve have also partnered on developing a VR head-mounted display. So that sounds like it's definitely.
So they're probably working together. Yeah,
that's definitely in the works. And then, of course, we've been, you know, waiting with bated breath to see what Apple releases into that world.
Click-baited breath, really?
Or, maybe not even. I mean, to me, oh man, what are they going to do? How are they going to make it work with the phone? Are they going to make a head display that works with the phone? Is it going to be AR with ARKit? I don't know. I guess we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, I'm actually more interested in the LG and Valve one because that one seems real. that one seems like one I will actually see come out
in the next year or two. Yeah.
And but it is interesting to see multiple companies like that, even ones that aren't necessarily working with each other, unless maybe all three are working together, to invest in a company, not just hire them, but invest in them because they want to make sure this company is on solid footing.
Right. Well, Reuters sources say Amazon secretly acquired the maker of Blink home security cameras late last year in a deal worth $90 million. Amazon supposedly hopes to use the acquisition to lower production costs and extend battery life of its devices like the Cloud Cam and Echo. Blink cameras claim to last 2 years on a pair of AA batteries. In addition, the information has sources who tell it that Amazon is designing its own AI chips to improve its voice assistant. Amazon acquired chip designer Annapurna Labs in 2015.
Yeah, unrelated story, by the way. Amazon laying off a few hundred employees from its corporate headquarters and a few other places today from its consumer retail business.
Yeah.
It's got 40,000 people, though, so a few hundred really isn't much. These Amazon stories are more interesting to me, especially the Blink one, because a AA battery running a camera, that's incredibly attractive to people who want to have long battery life cameras. It's got to be incredibly attractive to Amazon, who's had one attempt at an Amazon voice service powered device that wasn't stable, the portable Bluetooth speaker that had it built in, and they probably want something that they can say, hey, put this camera outside, it'll run on 2 AA batteries and have Amazon voice services built in. That would be insane.
Yeah. I just think there's still a lot of space in that sector to do interesting things, because with home security, like we have a Nest and I'm not into it. Like the hardware's fine. The software to me is just not great. Personally, that's my opinion.
Do you pay for their service?
We do.
Yeah. And you still aren't satisfied. That tells you something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So room to grow.
I don't pay for the Nest camera service, but have some Nest cameras and they're fine. Because you know what I mean? Like I have no expectations of them. I'm not paying for the service. I just want them to show me the thing they're pointed at, mostly my dogs. And they do that. So
yeah,
that's okay. But I guess if I were paying for it, I'd probably be more critical.
Yeah. Who knows?
I wonder how many people will want to use these Amazon security cameras. I mean, Amazon, when the Cloud Cam first rolled out, it was this whole sort of like security at your front door, right? Yeah. But you can use security cameras in lots of different ways.
Sure.
And I wonder how much Amazon is like, the 2-year, 2 AA batteries, like that sounds great. And as people get more used to the fact that these are really good, robust cameras, hopefully low cost, especially buying this company, then they can compete with, the drop cams of the world even more so. My
guess is what they were doing with drop cam was focusing on the front door because that's a way to get you to take Amazon for seriously and say, oh, well, maybe I should get an Amazon one because I do order from Amazon, with the idea of eventually spreading it elsewhere. Amazon Echo, when it first came out, was just a tower, right? And now they have multiple versions. So I could see them doing the same thing with drop cam. All right, we're going to combo the next 2 stories together because we think they're indicative of a trend. Kick us off with the first one, Sarah.
All right, sources tell Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, he's the Apple source over at Bloomberg, that Apple will change development of iOS to a 2-year cycle rather than a single year. While still updating the operating system yearly, developers will have freedom to push back features that just aren't ready to the second year of the cycle. The idea is to focus on quality and reliability over hitting a bunch of features at a specific time. Gurman also says the next version of iOS will include the ability to run apps on macOS and will add Animojis on iPad, which means that iPad would be getting FaceTime or Face ID rather.
Well, Google's been doing a similar way of developing for a long time, and they've had the ability to run Android apps on Chrome OS for a while. So what are they going to do? Well, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, who's also the Google source, along with Mark Bergen in this case, both Mark Bergen and Mark Bergen report their sources say the next version of Android due later this year will include the ability to handle a notch in the screen, similar to what the iPhone 10 and the Essential phone have. Android P, as it will most likely be called until it gets a candy name, will also let third-party apps use Google Assistant. That's something Siri doesn't do yet.
Yeah.
Promise better battery life and support multiple screens, as well as foldable displays, both of which have been rumored from various companies like Samsung.
Well, I mean, this is always the problem I have, which is that Google always is a couple steps ahead in my mind in terms of cool features that I would like to have immediately. But Apple always tends to have a better implementation of those features that I'm more likely to use. And so that to me feels like my constant struggle, even though I have largely stayed in the Apple ecosystem for the past, almost decade at this point now. But yeah, I mean, those rumors, that 2-year cycle is interesting, but it feels like, especially in light of recent launches, that maybe they need a little more time baking some of their ideas before they push them out.
I think back in the day with iOS, I remember it being like, iOS 3 went to iOS 4 or whatever. It's like they're huge, it's a big update, and we're looking at like, oh, these are all the things that are new. I think that sort of fell off for me when we got enough iPhone models that certain, the iPhone 10 does things that my iPhone 7
don't do. Yeah.
I don't even remember. I'm already starting to get used to the fact that depending on your, what unit you have, you might have different features. Right. So it matters to me less, really. And I don't really care if it's a 2-year cycle. I want features to be rolled out that are fully baked. And I think that Apple has had to, kind of come to terms with the fact that some of the stuff was probably rushed in an effort to, be on this yearly cycle. Mm-hmm. And it really would behoove developers to have a little bit more time to be able to stress test some of these features before they get rolled out to the public. So to me, it's like, this just is more realistic.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of all like even the Mac OS stuff. Like no one I know is upgrading to High Sierra because of the total poop emoji show it's been for a lot of folks.
I'm on High Sierra on all my devices; they're fine. So that stuff always gets exaggerated. One of his
computers, and it is now completely dead. Like
it happens, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and maybe it's happening more with High Sierra than in the past. I think that's absolutely true. I always want to throw in that, it gets exaggerated by the loudest voices sometimes, or in your case, if you're proximal to an incident, you think it happens to everybody because it happened.
It's not just me. I mean, we've definitely.
No, I know.
But yeah,
I'm just saying it can get exaggerated, but to your point, it is definitely happening, and Apple doing this sort of acknowledges that they are not satisfied with how bug-ridden some of their software has been. To my point, like, have we ever really had to think about this in a way? Like previously, I would just upgrade everything and not think twice about it. And I was always nervous.
Well, that seed of doubt has now been sown in my brain for that reason. So
I actually am a little less hesitant to upgrade than I used to be because third-party software handles it better. But it's shifted from me being, I'm not going to update because software I use will break because the developers haven't got around to upgrading yet. Now I'm like, I'm not going to upgrade until I'm sure the operating system itself doesn't have bugs. That's a difference. That's a big difference. I like what they're saying in this Bloomberg article, though, where their engineering team has gotten so big that they've decided that rather than say, well, we're going to announce stuff at WWDC, so you better ship it, they're going to allow you to say, the stuff that isn't ready, let's not force bugs into the software, push it off. And that way you can be a little more flexible and say, yeah, the feature's still coming. It's just going to come next year. I wonder, though, if they just need to be less ambitious and have a smaller engineering team. Maybe that's the solution if the smaller team worked better.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, it's sort of this... It's sort of this false sense of, on November 1st, I'm just making up that date. This is when the new iOS rolls out, so everybody's got to get ready. It's like, or you roll out updates as they happen, which I know is, what the Android team is more used to. So it's like, what does Apple get out of, the fanfare of a new iOS dropping? I think a few years ago, there was a lot more of it than there is now. It's kind of like lining up outside an Apple store for a new iPhone. The company has evolved to say, well, as fun as that was, it makes a lot more sense for us to have stable OSs if we shift our strategy.
And to the Android side of this story, I think it's very exciting that they are developing support for multi-screens, not because I can say that I want a multi-screen phone, but when the operating system supports it, you see more manufacturers decide to experiment with those things. And I'm very curious if somebody can make that work, finally. I love the idea of a foldable display. I just don't know how it works. I want somebody to make that work.
Right.
You want to
I know.
look
I
like
keep saying,
altered
that
carbon.
sounds cool. Show me one.
Right.
It looks like a piece of paper that you can like literally fold and
Yeah.
fold all the way down to a small piece, and then open up, and it has a display on it.
Also in counterpart on stars. So, this is a trend in the alternate universe. All right, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines, now available in the Australian App Store for the Amazon Echo, as well as in the Canadian and the UK and the US stores as well. Also on Google Home and in the Anchor app and as a podcast at dailytechheadlines.com. Let's check in with the thing of the day.
Chris Christensen has a new auction site for cheap airfare. You might be traveling soon. You'll want to hear this, but there is a catch.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. Saw a new app out. I haven't had a chance to try it yet because it is Android only and I'm on an iPhone, but it is called Air Ticket Arena. And this appears to be a Dutch auction for airline tickets. Basically, airlines set the percentage of seats they want to sell, and 24 hours and 48 hours before the departure, then they set how much money they want to get for the ticket. And apparently the price keeps dropping. You get to put in how much you're willing to pay. And as soon as it drops to the point at which you're willing to pay, assuming it does, so you want to do this with flexibility because you may not get tickets, then your tickets are automatically purchased. And the e-tickets are sent directly to the passenger, and you can take this last-minute flight. It's for people who are either chronic procrastinators or, better yet, for people who have flexibility and are willing to go if they can find a deal. The app, again, is Air Ticket Arena in the Google Play Store, and I'm Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
And by the way, it's a Dutch auction, not a Dutch company. I was confused by that
Also,
first time.
am I crazy, or is this exactly what Priceline did back in the day?
Very similar, yeah. Very
Yeah.
similar idea. Like, I can go today, maybe.
Yeah. There have been a couple times where Priceline, I felt very bait and switched, where I was like, I'll do it. And then it was like, crap. Now I'm flying on a day I didn't really want to fly.
This is different, though, where Priceline was like, you say you'll do it, and then we'll tell you how much, right? With a max on your spending. This one is working a little different, where you'll put in your bid and then you'll go when they tell you you're going to go within a range.
Oh,
Hey,
wouldn't
thanks
that be nice to have the flexibility to be like,
Seriously.
just let me know when I'm leaving.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Is that the mailbag, Sarah?
It is. Jeff in San Diego writes in, it's a bit of a tragedy. Jeff says, how do you know when you're a real fan of this show? When the DTNS podcast title screen is burned onto your smartphone's AMOLED screen. I'm not too happy about the burn-in, but if it was going to happen, I'm glad it was you. I suppose the next level would be DTNS body art.
Wow. Okay, first of all, I'm
I
glad
have so many questions.
Photo?
I'm really glad you enjoyed the show that much, Jeff. Second of all, anybody got some good AMOLED burn-in tips for Jeff so that he doesn't have to stare at a burnt-in DTNS logo?
Well, and third, assuming this is like an album art thing, can't you just turn off your screen? I don't know what phone you're using. But.
Well, no, that's the thing. That's what he's saying. When he turns it off, it's still there. It's burnt in.
But if the screen was asleep in the first place more often, then it wouldn't be as much of a problem.
You're telling him that it shouldn't be a problem. He's saying it is, so I don't know.
Jeff, send us screenshots and let us know how it's going.
Yeah, and anybody who's got AMOLED burn-in tips, send us those as well. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Speaking of feedback, I don't know, Veronica. Do you have feedback for us?
No, you guys are you're doing great. You're doing great. Love hearing you guys both every morning on my Echo bits. What do they call them?
The flash briefing.
Flash briefing. I like that.
Or your Echo bits.
Your Echo bits. That's what I'm calling them from now on.
Well, thank you. And we like listening to you as well. If anyone would like to know where else they can hear your lovely voice, what do they do?
IRLpodcast.org is the other podcast that I do. And my day job is over at disco at justdisco.com. Check it out. Make your team more engaged and happy.
Ooh, with a disco ball and everything. Check it out. Yeah. Excellent. Also, thanks to everybody who supports this show. We always try to get at least one more patron than last month. So help us get there by sticking around if you're already supporting us or joining in at patreon.com/DTNS. And if you haven't seen them yet, we've got brand new stuff in the DTNS store, including blue hoodies and even like aquamarine blue t-shirts. And there's some V-neck shirts if you're into that. It's all brand new stuff. Some with the old logo, some with the new logo, whichever one you like. You can get stuff with that logo on it at dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
I was very excited. As a small person, we've got t-shirts that would fit me and those of my small ilk. Wherever you may be. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC at both alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our websites, if you could guess, what would you guess? Yeah, you're right. dailytechnewsshow.com.
Hopefully, we'll have Patrick Beja back. Proud new father, Patrick Beja, back tomorrow, and we'll be talking about some cloud gaming with him. See you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Oh, that was a fun show.
It was a fun show.
Good stuff.
Good times.
That's good podcasting.
That's good podcasting.
I had forgotten to switch to studio. I hope that once I did switch over,
Yeah, it never happened again.
that it made things
We'll
better.
not speak of it again. No, it was fine. It's good.
Okay, all right.
So what are we going to call this show there, Roger Chang?
Just taking a break from Uber. Uber drivers forced to lift awareness. Facebook, all the kids
Thomas
aren't doing it.
business.
This one is just a little heavy on the R's. Ryzen, Radeon, Raven, Ridge released.
I like alliteration sometimes. Taxes are so taxing. That was before the show, though, I think.
Yeah.
Uber warns
Oh,
of
they
its
really are
11th
taxing.
hour.
I hate them. Hate them.
Tab Tom is a business. Anything, Veronica, Sarah, Tom?
Nothing jumping out to me. I like
No.
Thomas business.
Let me. It's
Well,
easier.
it's not as good as TAS. Tom is a service.
Those are all before the show references,
Yeah.
though. I don't know if they make sense with the regular show.
Yeah.
I like clickbaited breath.
Clickbaited breath is good. Or I like Facebook. All the kids aren't doing it.
Facebook. All the kids aren't doing it. That actually
like that
works.
one the best.
That one works really well, yeah.
All right. Sold.
Sold.
Sold American.
Clever.
What does that even mean? Like, is it like when they say that? Like, I assume.
I don't know. Look it
everything's-
up. I don't have time to look it up right now.
What
but
do
I
you
bet
mean?
you can find out what
What's your
sold
question,
American
Roger?
means.
Yeah, why would they say sold American? Like, if you're at an auction, it's obviously sold in the location you're at.
What if you're in Germany?
Sold in Germany.
It's not sold in.
Sig.
See, now you're making me look it up.
I'm sorry.
It's a 1938 song composed by Glenn Miller. So it's a song reference. It was a
I don't know
chant
who
by the
Glenn
orchestra,
Miller
repeated
is.
twice at the beginning and twice at the ending. Sold American. So it's just a song reference. It's just like when somebody makes, says something that's a Drake lyric or something.
For some reason, I cannot turn off Fitbit email notifications when someone would like to be healthy with me. You guys, you know that notification where it's just like, I don't even have a Fitbit anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. I did get the new Apple Watch yesterday, though.
You did?
Well, can you just delete the Fitbit app? Does that not get rid of them?
You have to like delete your account.
Yeah, like I don't feel the need to do that. I just can't seem to turn off email notifications.
Oh, email notifications. I see.
Wait, my mother is giving us trivia that I don't understand. She says, it also came from an old Lucky Strike cigarette ad. What were we talking about?
Sold American.
Okay,
Oh.
Sold American, Lucky Strike cigarettes featured a tobacco auctioneer at the end of their radio ad jingle saying sold American to emphasize
see.
that
Okay, I was like,
America
what is she
purchased the
referencing?
highest quality tobacco for its cigarettes.
Hi, Mom. I see you've joined us today.
Thank you, Linnell.
Thank you, Linnell.
All right, I got to go get ready for my next meeting.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you, Veronica.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Veronica.
Talk to you later. Bye.
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 I was gonna ask her.
So we were going to talk about the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you were saying something about so many different ways to watch, Sarah, making it kind of confusing.
So it's, I realize that I'm complaining about something, I'm complaining about having more choices than I used to have. The Olympics are one of those things where I realized that, back in the day, before we didn't have, all these real-time viewing options, you just had to tune into NBC and they'd give you what they gave you. But I was so used to that it's like, a 3-hour block, primetime, Sunday night, it's like, I still sort of want to do that, but I realize that it doesn't work anymore because you can't just be like, no one knows who won the figure skating, because we all do. So it's like, we've ruined it for ourselves.
Yes, and in the Summer Olympics, my solution to that was the Gold Zone. So you could go to the app, choose the Gold Zone, and it would show you what was happening at that moment and just flip from one thing to another as interesting things were happening, like last few seconds of a team handball game or 100-meter dash finally happening. Just that was great.
So
and
it was highlights.
so it was live though, because
okay.
Rio was in the same time zone. So it worked in
Right.
the evening. The problem this time is Korea starts their day like in the evening for us, and all the really prime stuff happens at like 3 a.m.
Right.
So you need that recap show, which they're doing again, called Gold Zone, which you can get on the app, but it's at 9 a.m. So in the evening when I'm like, I'm done with my day, let me watch some Olympics, there's live stuff happening, but it's not, like you say, it's not that convenient, like, here's all the stuff that happened. So I can watch the Gold Zone from the morning, but I did that on Sunday, and what happened was I watched the Gold Zone, and I was like, okay, cool. Now I'll watch what's happening on NBC, and they were rerunning stuff from the Gold Zone to fill in between the live events.
Yeah. On the NBC sports app, which Apple TV has an app for, and it's great. It's like you can't miss anything.
Yeah,
really.
that's what I've been
Whatever you want
using.
to watch is there. But I also find where it's like it's almost like I want the Sports Center version of the Olympics. It's like
They have
show me all the good stuff.
Yeah, they have that. It's the Olympics Channel news roundup, and it just shows you all the
Except that
highlights.
I was watching it last night, and like there'd be like minutes upon minutes where it was just like a title screen with some music. So it's like it's getting there, but it still feels very kind of like somebody's pushing, some buttons on the app.
Wait,
behind the scenes,
you
and
were
it's
watching
not,
the Olympics. You were watching the Olympics news thing.
I was watching the Olympics channel. Option on the NBC Sports app.
You have to fast forward to where it starts because they broadcast it live, and the on-demand doesn't start where it's live, which is dumb.
Right.
And then
see,
if
this
you
is
hit a
what I'm saying.
commercial
It's like,
break,
I
if you hit a
get it.
if you hit a commercial break, they make you sit through a blank break where it says commercial break in progress sometimes, which
amazing.
is also
it boggles my mind that, I mean, ESPN does this all the time because I watch ESPN on my Apple TV almost exclusively, that like those spots aren't filled with advertisers all the time.
Well, I can tell you why that is. I can tell you why that is. They decide that they want to charge people more for the digital. They're like, well, you can buy our prime time, and if you want to pay extra, or maybe they want to sweeten the deal, we'll throw in the digital tier as well. And so lots of advertisers don't buy the digital. They just want prime time. And so because they want to withhold it to charge more, they can't fill that inventory with the other ads, so they end up not fully selling it.
Well, okay, I understand that that would be your first option, but if you're ESPN and you know that some of your, you know, your big partners just aren't like, they're not convinced of digital yet, then instead of not selling it, why not have the like, okay, the second pass of like selling it to, you know, people who will pay?
Because then people will just wait and say, well, why? I'm not going to pay for your digital rate. I'm just going to wait until you bring it down. So you have to play a little game of chicken.
Yeah, I suppose. I just, you know, I don't watch cable television, right? So
honestly,
most commercials are, you know, I just don't see them.
What's interesting is
on me.
If you watch, I think this may be true or I may be being fooled, but if you watch the live NBC main feed live digitally, you still get full commercial breaks. So either they sold that out or they're mimicking the runs. I mean, eventually Nielsen has got products that say, look, we'll just tell you where your spot got seen. It doesn't matter where. And we'll get rid of this digital tier versus broadcast, like, ridiculous segmentation. But by then, probably you'll have like personalized ad streams based on who you are, and not everybody will be seeing the same ads anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the Winter Olympics are, I mean, if I had to choose between the two, I prefer summer. But Winter Olympics are really great, and one of my favorite events is ice skating. Men's and women's, of course, like everybody else. But it's like, I just remember it being like this, like, at 8 p.m., Tanya Harding's going to take the, you know, it's like, it was this whole, you know, kind of event thing. And I sort of long for, you know, being forced to watch a lot of this stuff with other people because, you know, it's very one-off, especially sports.
You still can. Most of the main events are happening in the evening anyway.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, the big skating was happening in the evening, and everybody was watching it on Twitter and talking about it at the same time.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, I got into it late, and so when I go to the app, it's like it's packaged up real nice for me, which is great. But
what time did you get to it then?
Last night? I don't know. 7-ish?
Oh no, there was still live stuff going on at 7, for sure.
I know, but there was so much of it that...
Here's the problem. Here's what I think the real problem is. When you go to the app, and this is the same on the website, it's impossible to tell what is what.
You're just like, okay, I'm basically at like some like festival.
Yeah. No, it is really... You
have
have to look really closely to figure out like what's actually live now, because they'll have like the NBC live feed enhanced, the NBC live feed not enhanced, and then that'll be labeled as like 3 different sports. But then they'll have that sport labeled separately, but that's not actually the live stuff of the sport. That's the prepackaged stuff of the sport. Then they'll have NBC SN, the exact same thing. They don't have anything broken down just by sport. It's really annoying what they did with the app.
Well, and at first when I saw enhanced versus standard, I'm like, oh, is this like HD? Like, but no, it's like like multicam stuff, and
it's not even that. It's like text on the right and like text on the bottom.
You're just like, okay, it's enhanced in a way that maybe some people want, but not necessarily.
Honestly, the enhanced page ended up being useful for me in the airport because on my laptop, the screen size didn't matter as much of the video, and we couldn't really hear. So seeing the facts that they were putting up was helpful because I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But when we were watching it on our TV, it's like, no, I don't want a smaller picture. That's not enhanced.
Right. Yeah. I think it was, okay, if we're thinking of the Winter Olympics. No, it was actually summer. So it's like, if we go like 2, 4, 6, maybe it was about 6 years ago, the last Summer Olympics. Anyway, I remember that it was the NBC app or some version of whatever it was 6 years ago on the iPad being like, you could just watch, basically a live stream. It was the first time that I had ever been able to do that. And it was like, the commentary wasn't there, the chyrons weren't there. It was kind of raw, but it was really cool. And I overdosed that year on just like watching, on my iPad, the Olympics were always playing. But now I'm like, it's like, I need it to be packaged better than that. Like, I want it to be like old school NBC stuff.
No, and it's there. It is there. You just can't find it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, what you want is absolutely there and was there at 7:00 last night.
I believe
you couldn't find it. Like, that's how much NBC failed you.
I long for the simplicity.
Yeah.
The simplicity before we were crippled by choice.
Right. Now, when you log into the NBC app, do you also have like PlayStation View or something like that? No. See, because then you could just go to the NBC thing. Because we were at my in-laws for a baptism, and so in the evening we said, "Oh, do you want to watch the Olympics?" And they said, "Sure, we'd love to, but we don't have television. we have a television and we have a PlayStation 4, but we don't have cable and we don't subscribe to any services." So I'm like, "Oh, well, no problem. You've got a Chromecast. I will log into my NBC app because I can't log into my PlayStation View app because it's mobile restricted, but I can use my PlayStation View credentials to log into my NBC Sports app because it is not mobile restricted for whatever reason." So I was playing the thing and I was sending it to the Chromecast. That worked for like an hour, and then the Chromecast kept freezing. Like, we'd watch for an hour, freeze, watch for an hour, freeze. So then we tried hooking up the phone directly to the television, but the problem there was, for some reason, the app wouldn't let me do full screen on the television anymore. It would show up smaller, like a bunch of black around it. So we're like, well, that's no good. Let's hook up my laptop. So we tried to hook up the laptop to the television, but I'd forgotten my HDMI adapter to go USB-C to HDMI. So my brother-in-law says, "I don't have an HDMI to USB-C adapter, but I do have this," and pulls out a Razer enclosure with an NVIDIA 1070 in it. We plug it in by USB-C, doesn't work. Turns out you need some updates to make it work with Mac OS. But he said, "Don't worry. I also have a Radeon 580. He works for CNET, so he's got all this stuff. He's like, so he swaps the Radeon 580 into the enclosure. So we end up with this huge Radeon 580 in a Razer enclosure, whirring away, plugged in by USB-C, actually powering my laptop, which was convenient, and then going from HDMI out of the enclosure into the television, and we're able to use the website to watch the Olympics just fine.
You made it happen.
We made it happen.
There are definitely times where it's like, this always happens to me when I want to watch a particular basketball game, because there's blackouts and restrictions. And
right, yeah.
And I don't have cable, so, I have to get creative sometimes. But there's legally, often, it's like, sometimes I have to like AirPlay from my phone to the Apple TV or from my computer, and it's even if there's an Apple TV app, half the time the game isn't there, so it has to get cobbled together some other time. But I always feel like a wizard when I figure it out.
Yeah, I think the NBC Sports app and website were much better last Olympics, the Rio Olympics, because it was broken down by sport. But it was also the gold zone was your just that what you were talking about. Just show me a stream of what's on.
Yeah.
Show me I don't want to think. Just show me. And then it was very clear which broadcasts were like, this is what's on NBC. This is what's on NBCSN, and it's on right now and it's off. This year there's like 2 NBCSNs sometime, but one of them's not real, but they both say live, and nothing's broken down by sport, and it's just.
Yeah, that was one of the things about the app last night, and I didn't do a whole lot of research, but it was like, it was marked live, but I'm like, but I know it's not. Because there's
that happens all the
online about it.
Yeah.
So like,
it's really confusing.
yeah, like what kind of tape delay are we talking about here? You know, if I knew
Well,
that, it would.
and
be
there's
better.
two reasons that happen. One is they'll put stuff live that isn't live. Like you'll click on it and it'll be like, this broadcast is ended.
You can't say when you say live.
Yeah.
That's what it needs to be.
The other thing they do
any other time
is they'll put live for their primetime broadcast, which is fine because it's actually live. But then the primetime broadcast will rerun things. So it'll say like live, figure skating, luge, and snowboarding. And you'll be like, but I know who won luge because that happened earlier today. And that happens because they're rerunning it alongside the actually live things. So then that becomes super confusing.
Well, the truth is I've been so kind of like not paying attention to everybody who has qualified for the Olympics. I don't even know why I'm complaining. Like, what do I care if things are live or not live? It's like, I don't know who any of these people are anyway. And I just like watching, Olympic sports. So it's not really some like big issue where I'm like, oh, things are spoiled or things aren't live. It's like, it doesn't really matter. I just find that it's become so easy to watch whatever you want, packaged however you want, and so many different options. And like you said, the website letting you know when Olympic sports are, you look at it and you're like, what? I mean, it's overwhelming. That's not a bad thing. I just feel like it's hard for me to keep up, but that's probably because I just didn't do enough research beforehand.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to. The research you should do is go to the NBC Sports site, right?
And show me people doing Olympic things
Okay.
that I can't do.
So here, I'm gonna screen share this because this is what we're talking about. So here is the here is the current site. As you can see, how Jamie Anderson outsmarted the field is a package about Jamie Anderson. That's the big thing. Even though there's live sports going on right now, apparently. Or are there? I don't know. It's all grayed out. It's hard to read. But if I hover over it, hockey, curling, biathlon, snowboarding, live on NBCSN. Or is it? I bet some of those are replays. Snowboarding tonight. Okay, but that's tonight. Oh, but then I can watch now. That's primetime. Chloe
Shaun
Kim.
White's still at it, huh?
But can I actually watch that? Like, and then yes, there's these things by sport. They're not as handy as they were in Rio, but here you go. They have them. Okay, figure skating is live. I don't want to click on anything because I don't want to broadcast it and then get in trouble. But I know when I go into the sports specific feeds, a lot of times those will end up being actually alternate commentary. Like it's the Olympic service commentary in English versus the NBC broadcasters. So we were watching figure skating last night, trying to catch up on some stuff that we had missed when we were on the airplane. And we're like, wait a minute, why is this not Tara Lipinski and Johnny Weir? And it was because when you go in on demand for figure skating, you get different commentators, which is also a weird thing.
Right.
But isn't Johnny Weir look like he's broadcasting from the Hunger Games?
Yes. Actually.
Isn't that what all this is leading to? That's what all of this was about.
Yeah. May the odds be ever.
Any final words to our YouTube audience?
Go watch the Olympics, even though we've both been complaining about it. We're only complaining because it's really fun.
Or you can do what I do and follow up next day on who won what.
Okay, but no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to you, Roger Chang, and everyone else, go watch them. They're fun.
Or catch up the next day. All right. See you guys mañana.
Goodbye, patrons.